It's difficult to be an RPG fan during the time of the Nintendo 64, if you also happen to be a Nintendo fan, mostly because there weren't a lot of RPGs on the system. In fact, I can only think of 3 off the top of my head: Paper Mario, Ogre 64, and today's subject, Quest 64. And of those 3 games that I've listed, Quest 64 is easily the worst of the 3. It's bad. It's very bad. Everything about it is bad. You want to know how bad it is? Well, let me tell you. Let's start off with the lack of plot in this game. In fact, I haven't seen an RPG with so little plot since Hydlide on the NES. The idea behind Quest 64 is that you play as the magician's apprentice, Brian, whose father has gone off on a journey and not returned. He was sent off to try and recover the Elatail book. What is the Elatail book? What does it do? It's never explained, only that it apparently keeps the balance of the world in check or something like that. And then you are sent off to try and find your father, who was sent off to try and find the book. And from there, the plot is completely forgotten until the last 15 minutes of the game. I'm not even kidding, they barely bring up this plot again after the initial setup right at the beginning. Instead, you just go from place to place, do things happen, and then you move on to the next place. There are no cutscenes in the game either, mostly to save on space in the cartridge, but that just leads to even more frustration because the game doesn't tell you anything, and you have no idea whether or not the tasks you're doing are actually moving you towards the end of the game, or if you're actually accomplishing things of any consequence. What's worse is that, since the plot is never really addressed, the conveyance is also terrible. You have no idea where you're supposed to go after each task you've completed. It would be nice to at least be pointed in a direction so I have some idea how to continue the game. I know that there aren't exactly a lot of places to explore in this game, and most of the dungeons are so linear that they make Final Fantasy XIII's dungeons look downright complex, but at the same time, come on, give me something! Just give me something to do! Okay, so we've covered the fact that there is absolutely nothing to this game's plot and conveyance, and most of the time you have no idea what you're doing or why you're doing it. But hey, plot is only one side of the pie when it comes to RPGs, and most games can be saved even if their story is lackluster if they have interesting gameplay. The gameplay in this game is not interesting. It is very uninteresting, and dumb, and stupid, and bad. To start off, the game barely qualifies as an RPG. It is a very bare-bones experience. The rest of the game looks extraordinarily empty, which you would think would mean that there would at least be some depths to the mechanics, but no. There are no mini-games, no side quests, no extra dungeons to explore, no exploration whatsoever, no other party members, no real monetary system even. Instead, you find a majority of the items that you need just lying around in treasure chests, or more often than not, they're just given to you by people. You don't have to buy anything. You don't even get upgrades or equipment to yourself. It is incredibly linear and consequently incredibly boring. It's hard to feel like I'm accomplishing something when the game is just giving me handouts like this. Of course, that's only covering the problems that the game has in terms of its gameplay outside of battle. The actual combat system, and consequently the leveling system of the game, is where a lot of the true problems lie. When you're in combat, you have the ability to cast spells from 4 different elements: earth, wind, fire, and water. I am sorry to those who are expecting a Captain Planet joke here, but I suppose if you really want to, you can pretend that hitting things with your stick is the power of heart. Now, the thing about the leveling system and the spellcasting system is, once you cast enough spells, you level up your magic power and can choose to upgrade one of the 4 elements, up to a maximum level of 50. Though no matter how much you grind in this game, you will never be able to get all 4 elements to 50, and if you try to play the game balanced, you're just going to end up severely handicapping yourself by the end of the game. Not that it matters any, because even with the more powerful spells at your disposal, none of them really do that much more damage than their level 1 counterparts. At best, a bigger rock or more fireballs have more hit radius, but at the same time, you could just cast a level 1 rock and save the magic points and do the exact same amount of damage. It is completely broken. Now, of course, that's not even counting the fact that it's severely difficult to aim your spells, because most of these spells are not auto-targeting. You have to manually aim the spells by pointing Brian at the enemy you want to hit and hoping that you have enough distance between yourself and your target. Some spells do automatically target an enemy, but for the most part, you have to manually aim them. And with how touchy the controls are in this game, that is quite a feat to master. And once again, even if you do manage to aim your spells properly, that brings us to the totally broken leveling system in this game. Remember how I said when you cast spells, it levels up your magical ability? Well, when your magical ability levels up, that's all that levels up. Your magic points increase, and you get to choose which of the 4 elements you want to increase in level. When it comes to your other stats, though, each of them is increased in a different way, oftentimes contradicting themselves, and thus forcing you to grind in 2 completely different actions just to get your stats up. For example, if you want to increase your hit points, you have to hit things with your stick, as we called it earlier, the power of heart. Unfortunately, if you're hitting things with heart, that means you aren't using fire, earth, wind, or water, meaning you're not actually increasing your magical ability. If you want to up your defense, you have to let enemies pummel you. And if you want to increase your agility, all you have to do is run around. Not in battle or even run from battle, you just have to run around. Basically, anytime you are moving the control stick, you are gaining agility. This simultaneously makes it both the easiest and most annoying stat to upgrade. It's kind of like the athletics skill in the Elder Scrolls games, and it's almost just as useless. With all that being said, if I did actually have to praise something in the game, it would probably be the graphics. While it is true that most of the environments are completely empty and devoid of life, and most of them lack any detail whatsoever, I will say that for an early N64 title, the draw distance is pretty good, and I guess it is kind of impressive some of the animations they put on the enemies and the characters, even if they do look hideously ugly when you actually zoom in on them. But that's about as kind as I can get with this game. In terms of music, the game is also hideously, completely, utterly inadequate. I would have liked to praise the music, but most of it is just completely repetitive. The only music that I really remember from the game is the music that plays when you're outside in a field, and that's only because you spend so much time in fields in this game because all of them are completely massive, and empty, and devoid of anything interesting. Unfortunately, that's about all I have to say about this game. It's shallow, it's not fun, and there's absolutely nothing in it that I can recommend. You want to know what the worst part about it is, though? To give you an idea of just how disappointing this game is, let's compare it to its remake. Yes, there actually is a remake of this game, released 2 years after it for, believe it or not, the Game Boy Color. And you know what? Despite the fact that the Game Boy Color version still has a lot of the same flaws that I pointed out with the N64 version, it's a much better game. Mostly because, due to the limitations of the system, the flaws aren't inherently noticeable, and it just works better as a 2D top-down RPG than it does as a fully rendered 3D world. The bottom line here, if you are absolutely starved for an RPG experience on a console like the N64, do yourself a favor and invest in a copy of Paper Mario. While yes, Quest 64 is considerably cheaper than that game, you're definitely getting what you paid for here. And while I would still call Paper Mario a quote-unquote simplistic game in that its mechanics are meant to appeal to a younger audience, it has pretty much everything that, well, Quest 64 lacks, like substance, and character, and a plot, and fun. Good. Thanks for listening to my review. Now, if you don't mind, go and check out the Overshield.com, or go and subscribe to the Overshield YouTube channel. We would all really appreciate it, and you'll get plenty of entertainment out of it. We got reviews, previews, interviews, and plenty of other views I haven't mentioned before, so be sure to check us out. Okay, thanks, bye.